Welcome to Manhood Race Culture Interactive. It is December 9th, 2021. We are rounding the corner to this one, which has been an interesting year ending out. Thank you for joining us. And keep in mind that this video will show up on our YouTube channel, which is Manhood Race and Culture, but also we have a written channel, which is manhoodraceculture.com. One of the new things that we're trying to do is have this, of course, it's a very intelligent conversation, but I think that we would do our viewers and our listeners additional justice if we go ahead and integrate something else. And what I want to integrate is quite simply a recommendation for a book. And the book that I'm recommending is actually this one right here. If you can see it, it is Inadmissible Evidence by Evelyn Williams. If you don't know who Evelyn Williams is, I'll tell you that Evelyn Williams is actually the aunt of the famed Black Liberation Army soldier, Assata Ogbubala Shakur. And this book right here, Inadmissible Evidence, is her story of what Evelyn Williams went through and also what Assata went through. And she alleges in this book that Assata actually downplays exactly what it is that she has gone through during her, especially her incarceration time. That Assata was actually the first female ever in the American penal system to be incarcerated in a maximum security prison. This is before she had been tried and convicted, but they had the sister actually inside of a male facility. Okay, so you have one Black female incarcerated in a maximum security prison with males. And once again, the book is titled Inadmissible Evidence by Evelyn Williams. Well, tonight we are going to deal with a very interesting issue, and it involves nooses, it involves racial hatred and hate crimes. I'd like to start this conversation off before we do anything by posing a question to the panel. And the question that I'm going to pose is actually, what comes to your mind when you hear the word lynching and nooses? What comes to the mind? Sister DC is on you.
So, because I'm ancient and old, one of the most profoundly traumatizing things that I have in my memory, I probably was about 5 or 6 years old. My father took a couple of wrong turns trying to avoid the flooded James River in Northern Virginia, and there was a cross burning. I didn't know anything about racial hatred. I didn't even know anything about lynchings. I didn't know anything about anything. I was too young, and I didn't even know there were white people. Okay, come on. I was that young and that naive. So when I hear the word lynchings, when I hear that word, it brings to mind Billie Holiday, Bitter Fruit. It brings to mind innocent people being murdered in a very horrible way. It brings to mind injustice. It brings to mind the nightmare that Africans and African Americans have had to suffer the whole time we've been on this continent. I yield.
Okay, Brother Omar.
Oh, yes.
What does the image of the imagery of nooses, lynching, bring up in your mind?
As Sister DC stated, coming up as a very, very young man, we wasn't taught a lot about slavery at that early age. My exposure to lynching was basically what I saw on the television. And that was basically somebody getting lynched for stealing a horse or a cow or something, or killing somebody, when I was a youngster, and as I stated earlier, I think I didn't hear anything about Dr. King, Rosa Parks, any of the Black movements until I graduated high school and left home. I was raised up. I was born in Richmond, California, but I was raised in Louisiana, out in the country, so I didn't have much exposure. My biggest exposure was to cotton fields and chopping beans and things of this nature, raising animals, and I think I may have heard one time the name Malcolm X on TV, and that flashed on and off so quick, I didn't even know what that was about, but now my understanding of it now is about lynching, that is that it is a travesty, and it is an exposure to the sickness, okay, of the mind of white people, that they would take someone who had done them no wrong, and literally just kill them. And don't just kill them, bring the whole white community out, and it becomes a spectacle, so it is to me, it is the exposure of a sickness that so-called white people have. I'll yield with that.
Thank you for that, my brother. Brother Allen, it's on you.
Well, going along with what DC and Curtis have said about lynching, I didn't know too much about it until the 70s, when we were kind of listening to music, and someone brought up this song from Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit. And I couldn't understand how that could happen, but it was something that I was picking up on it. It's more and more history I was getting. And I didn't understand really, I think there was a trip that we took to Washington, DC, where they showed all the lynching, pictures of the lynchings that was going on. And I didn't understand, I couldn't believe that white people, as Curtis had said, on a Friday or Saturday or whatever day it was that they decided to take somebody, would gather together and have a picnic, food. It would be a festive occasion to watch this human being being tortured to death, and to see a child up there, or to see a husband and wife up there, especially a woman, and it didn't matter the age of the person. And then the worst part about it was they would take like a piece of the body, a trophy, like a souvenir. This was a really sick spectacle. And of course, there are people that are living with us to this very day that we don't even, it's never discussed, that went to a lynching. Last night I was watching Schindler's List. I'd never been able to watch the whole movie, you know what I mean? But I've been watching bits and pieces of it. And all you have to do is just change your mind to those people being Black, and you can see, the connection. And as they say, they were doing that in Namibia before they did it in Germany. I yield.
All right, thank you all for those recollections. One of the most reverberating stories for me about the generation or generation, 2 generations above me, are, those who lived in racial segregation, comes from one of my Ohio State professors, Dr. Stephanie Shaw. And I was reminded of that by Sister DC. kind of saying that, and Brother Omar also saying that, they really weren't around or knew the presence of white folk as they were growing up. And for my generation, we kind of scoff at that because we're like, what do you mean you didn't know about white folk? But Dr. Shaw told us the story about, she was in North Carolina, I want to say that's where she was born and raised. And she says, I am telling you guys, we did not know that we were victims of racial segregation. And we're like, how in the world did y'all not know as children? So she tells us a story that one day out of the week that her family ate fish. And there was a local fish restaurant, the seafood restaurant that sold fish. And it was a big thing within their family that was the one day out of the week that they were able to go and get fish. But they never went into the establishment. They always went around to the back. And we're like, how did you not know? And she says, in my mind, we went to the back so that, and there was a deacon or some well-established member of their church who worked at that restaurant. Of course, the cooks, if the food was good, more than likely the cooks were black folk. And she said in her mind, they went to the back to place their order and get their food so that Deacon Johnson could see that it was her.
Yeah.
And once he saw that it was her, in her mind, he put more food and fish into her container. So that's why, and she said it was a privilege to go in the back because we got more food than the people who went through the front door. And that story has always resonated with me because in many ways it's kind of like, how can I put this? It's one of those situations where you see the movements and the protections of Black America occurring seamlessly. And there is an amazing preservation of childhood innocence that Black America was able to achieve upon their children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I yield with that.
I remember I was probably about the same age range, and my mother would go downtown to go to the Lexington Market in Baltimore to get fresh produce, etc. And this was a special weekend or maybe around my birthday, I don't know. But my mother had promised that if my brother and I were good, that she would get us a sundae from Woolworths or MG Murphy's, which was like a Woolworth store, one of those, Walmart type stores, had everything. They had a counter where, people would sit on stools and eat, etc. And this particular day, as we finished with Lexington Market, we went right across the street to this Woolworth store, and you could see the counter from the sidewalk. And I remember saying, Mommy, nobody's there. We can get it. And we went in, counter wide open, nobody there. And my mother grabbed my little brother and put him up on the stool, and she helped me up on the stool. And before she could sit on the stool, the cook or the manager, the boss came out and said, "Girl, what are you doing here?" And my mother said, "My children want sundaes." He said, "We don't serve you at the counter." I'll never forget that. I can see it in my mind. I can see what my mama had on. My mama was light-skinned like me, and she turned beet red, and she grabbed my brother and grabbed me by the hand, and she left out of that store. And I still didn't understand. I was like upset because I thought the mean man didn't want me to have a Sunday. Well, he didn't want me to have a Sunday, not at his counter, but yeah, racism. And that was in Baltimore, circa 1960s in Baltimore. Yeah.
Ironically, once again, your story reminds me of, ironically, Assata Shakur. And Assata Shakur tells his story of being in North Carolina again, and how they had one of those little makeshift carnivals that came, a fair, a mobile fair. It wasn't a real, stationary amusement park. And she says that she remembers wanting to ride. She wanted to, to participate and have some fun. She's a child. And her mother apparently said, on this day, my children are going to have some fun. They're going to, participate. And she was able to ingenuously jump over all of the Southern customs and cultures of racial segregation through a very innovative way. And now they could tell that they were not white people. And I would just ask her, what do you think her mother did that allowed them to participate?
Put powdered them down.
No, no.
I don't know.
No. And it shows the craziness of racial segregation. Any other guesses?
I have no clue.
She began to speak gibberish as if she was like from a Caribbean island or something, that you could clearly see they were persons of African descent, but they weren't Negroes, because Negroes didn't speak whatever language she was making up.
Wow.
And the white people said, well, go ahead, go, come on. You guys, we just don't allow Negroes in here,
Wow.
So yeah, for our viewers, the reason that we've approached this thing with lynching is, of course, today is the day that the verdict, and it just came down not even 30 minutes ago, of Jussie Smollett, in his case. Now, that's all I can say about, from the moment that I heard about it, I knew he was lying. Okay.
Yeah.
I immediately, I said, this Negro right here is lying.
Yes.
Okay. And what made it more offensive to me that he was lying, from my perspective, and I made that decision within moments of hearing it. I said, that Negro lying. It made it worse for me because he's dealing with drawing up the imagery, the racial imagery of one of the worst moments of our experience. And Brother Allen touched on it. He's right all over it, as always, when he talks about how the lynching of Black folk, of Black bodies, and we're talking about Black men, women, children, teenagers, and anyone, male, female, any of us were available to be lynched. His use of that racial imagery really offended me. Okay. But the thing that made me, and DC, Sister DC, I'm really interested in hearing why you thought he was lying. The thing that made me know that this Negro here is lying was that when the police got there, now he's back in his apartment, okay, his residence. He claims he's been attacked and this and that, with the noose still around his neck.
Yeah.
Now that there for me, I said, oh no. He ain't thinking about this right. Okay. Now he didn't have a noose sitting on the kitchen table. He had it still dangling around his neck.
Yeah.
Now, bruh, they're selling it, and then they're selling it. Like,
right.
Like somebody will say, oh yeah, it happened. I saw the noose around his neck. Bruh, you're not thinking about this correctly. Sister DC, what led you to think that he was to know that he was not telling the truth?
Well, first, you made an excellent point. He took it way too far. When I first heard it, I didn't understand the time that it happened. I didn't understand the weather that it happened, So within a day or two, I'm already downing it because who would keep the noose around their neck? But I'm already downing it. And then I hear that it was 10 degrees outside,
Oh,
that he walked several blocks to go to a Subway restaurant at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Who does that? You're Jussie Smollett. You're making $125,000 per episode of Empire, and you're gonna get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and decide in 10-degree weather to walk by yourself blocks away to a Subway to get a Subway sandwich, my hind parts. So then I'm like 99% not believing him. And what cinched it for me is when he pulled out the sexual orientation card. When he said, they called me a faggot, and then he had this conference at a HBUC and said, I'm gay and I was victimized because I'm a gay man. And I'm like, come on, y'all. Who at 3 o'clock in the morning in Chicago at 10 degrees is gonna be able to point you out in the middle of the street and identify you're gay and just have a gallon of bleach with them and the noose with them? It was made up from the gate. That bothers me. What bothers me is that he pulled the race card and then he pulled the sexual orientation card. All right. I believe he did it because he is a narcissist. He loves adoration. People were adoring him. Through the Empire series, he was the most adored character in the series. And because he had such a following, especially with folks of alternative lifestyles, he felt that he was going to make himself the super martyr and raise his career even more. It bothers me. I was so glad he was found guilty today. All right. I'm just saying. So I yield. That's my position, and I yield.
Okay, thank you for that, Sister DC. I'll tell you what, if he had been able to pull this off, he would have been what's the guy's name from Subway? Remember the guy that lost all that weight?
Yeah, Jason. Yeah.
He would have been the new Jason, because that's a hell of a spokesperson right there, boy. 3 in the
Yep.
morning, 10 degrees. I got to have it. You get my meatball marinara together, my cold cuts. So let's take a look at the what has come down as far as the verdict, and then we'll jump right back into this conversation.
Right now, guilty on count number 1. That's count number 1 has just come in, and he's found guilty on count number 1. There are 6 counts total. Pat, let's bring you back in. Describe the difference in these 6 counts, because as I understand it, the first 2 had to do with what he said to the officer when they responded to this.
It's all the same conduct, just lying to the police, filing a false report, misleading them as to a crime that didn't happen. Apparently the jury.
Count 2, guilty. So count 1, guilty. Count number 2, guilty. Pat, does that mean that this probably will follow suit in all 6?
It should, yeah. It'd be an inconsistent verdict otherwise, I think, at this point.
Okay,
We'll
so
get to count 3 first before.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess we will. But to your point, these are all sort of tied. How are they different than the 16 charges that were dropped initially in this case?
They're just more charging different things. This is basically, Dan Webb narrowed it down to these 6 disorderly conduct charges, just filing the false police report. There were some other things. I don't recall all the 16 charges, but this is just more narrowly focused.
Count number 3, guilty. So we have count 1, guilty, count 2, guilty, count 3, guilty. And I'm trying to think now, let me get to it. Count 4, we're just hearing now guilty as well. Is there any reason to think, Pat, that the next 2 won't also be guilty?
No.
All right, so to the point then, and we'll pass these along when we get them. But to your point now, the penalties, because these are felonies, but they are the least serious felonies.
Yeah, class
correct?
4 in Illinois, yeah.
And what do they carry?
Up to 3, but he can also get, it's probationable. I mean, he can get probation, so it can go from probation to 3. But again, I do think that he might do some time, given, as John pointed out, the damage in the clown show this was on the city of Chicago, and the basis of the crime is filing this false police report. Look at all the hoops everybody had to jump through to prove that, you know, Jussie Smollett concocted this whole thing. So there's a big expense here, a big risk to the city, and you know, there was potential in this city for igniting a race riot.
Count 5.
Any reaction, gang? Any reaction?
A race riot? I think that's.
Oh, yeah. No. They were going to set it off in Chicago because they said the police were not investigating, didn't believe him because he was gay, he was black, whatever. Yeah.
You know, not to be, you know, facetious. I don't know black folk are gonna necessarily hit the streets when you throw that gay card in there. You know, I'm not sure. I think that might actually douse some of their anger, unfortunately.
You have to understand his following. His following at the point where he did this, people loved him. They were so bought in to him. He's a great singer. He's a great composer. All right. But when you use a lie to heighten yourself, you're going to crash and burn. When they figure out it's not a lie, you're going to crash and burn. I mean, when they figure out it is a lie, you're going to crash and burn. And that's what happened.
How much attention do you need, though? I mean, that's a lot of attention. You know, what kind of an ego did he need to stroke?
But see, if I remember this correctly, I think that there was something that was being said about him possibly his character being written out.
Well, at that time, James, because I was a staunch Empire fan. All right. At that time, they were talking about it being the last season. They were talking about, you know, hey, this could possibly, the last 3 seasons were the last season. All right. At the end of every season, they said, we're not coming back, etc. And that was another ploy to keep people locked in and to get people to go on Facebook so the sponsors could read how much everybody wanted Empire to come back. You know, so he did it, I believe, again, to put himself in a position where he had folks marching in the street talking about, oh, our beloved Jussie Smollett, you all are discriminating against him because he's black and because he's gay and whatever. And he lied.
You know, Jussie Smollett was never really on my radar, and neither was Empire. Never watched a single episode. So I can't really speak to like how the show aspect, you know, played in on his decisions. But I will add this. I was in a conversation about this very case earlier today with a couple of Black men. And we were talking about the actual charges that he was being tried for, which is, you know, making false report. And one of them said, why are they going after him so hard?
That's exactly
when you
right.
have white women all over America making false reports to the police about Black people all the time, and they're never held accountable.
They're sending a message for now.
And I said, oh wow, I never thought about that before. I never thought about this case, these particular charges, not necessarily these cases, but what he's being tried for, making false reports, within the context of the way in which some white women have weaponized the police against Black people by making false reports. You know, I'm in danger, come help me, he's threatening to kill me, you know, please hurry, and stuff like that. And, you know, and I said, well, okay, when you put it in that case, we can see here where, you know, justice or the law is not being fairly applied.
They made an example of him. Anyone who comes out too far and gets too deep of a following, and then they're going to do something that is considered to be criminal, not just criminal, but a felony criminal, they are going to make an example out of him.
Well,
You know,
I wasn't even thinking about it from that aspect. I was just talking about it in terms of the charges upon which he was actually tried for.
Wasn't
they
wasn't
never, they didn't push forward the filing the false police report. They are only getting him on the giving false information to officers. That's what those 6 charges are.
Yeah,
He was
making false reports to the police.
right. He was initially charged with 15 counts. And they got rid of 9 of those 15 counts, or whatever, 8 of those 15 counts, and charged him with these 6. The 6th charge, he wasn't even found guilty on, because the jury felt that the prosecutor made their case on the first 5, but not on the final 6th charge, where he spoke to an officer 2 days after the incident and gave more details about his lie. You know, but I believe that they took it to this level because, first of all, Black people have an issue with the Chicago police, and Jussie Smollett said, oh, the police aren't listening to me. I've been victimized and no one's doing anything because I'm Black and because I'm gay. All right. So when they found out that nothing happened to him, they said, oh no. And all the man hours, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that were spent to investigate a hoax, that's the other reason that they took it to the level that they took it to. They told him sometime before he was charged, if you write us a check for $175,000 to cover the cost of the investigation, we'll probably let this go. And he was like, no, I'm telling the truth. They said, okay, all right, $175,000. I guarantee you when he's sentenced, they're going to fine him and he's going to end up paying the cost for all of those investigators and everything.
wasn't there didn't they try to attach, was it the prosecutor or the district attorney, Kim Porter? I think there was a young lady, African-American lady, that was very progressive, and they were trying to say that she did not impose the full charges necessary when he first came out. They were trying to attach her to this too, but she won her re-election, thank God.
Yeah, because she treated him the way they treated other people when they make false reports to the police.
Yeah,
That's what she said.
I think that it's the fact of, first off, he wouldn't have gotten this attention if he wasn't a quote unquote star. And they went ahead and dimmed that star because you went ahead and really, because now you're in the public eye once again. And once again, one of the things that just bothers me to the core is the utilization of the racial imagery, the historical memory of lynching, and what that means for Black folk. And then there's this other thing that for me came up, and you know how you go through a rabbit hole where you just up one night and you can't sleep and you just start clicking on things. And I wound up clicking on, and this has nothing to do with what it is that we're talking about. Came up with on a video of Brother Umar Johnson. And Brother Umar is once again raising money for his school. He now, Sister DC, please subdue your laughter.
Because the mention of his name is laughable.
He claims that he's got 2 school buildings, and and that they're going to be busing in Black boys from 4 different states to this school. It's supposed to be the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. But you know,
Jay,
that's neither
Jay,
I don't want to get sidetracked with that. That's neither here nor there.
w-
But
can I give you some advice though? You need
what's
to
that?
put a freeze. You need to put a freeze on your credit reports because you're gonna start getting bills for utilities for his school building. I'm just saying.
See, since the DC remembers that, I wrote a piece about that brother, right? And the county that he was putting his school at, theoretically, he had actually filled out paperwork and stuff, and he had developed some bills. And those people contacted me because they did a Google search of Umar Johnson because they were trying to serve him court papers. And so they contacted me to see if I had a way of getting that paperwork to Umar. And I'm like, yo, no, I just wrote a blog entry about Umar.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just
And
saying.
I was just, and so now people think that I'm somehow in bed with Umar. And I'm like, no, I'm not in bed with Umar. But you know, the reason that popped up to me, you know, in addition to this thing right here, how it's associated, is that it's going to always be hard for me to ever forgive Umar because Umar damaged Black folk.
Yeah,
Black folk who believed enough, and these are poor Black folk who know something is wrong. They don't have enough historical knowledge or understanding to see, you know, a charlatan when they see him, but they gave money to this, and they'll probably
right.
never give money to anything else, regardless of how legitimate it is going forward.
Yep.
This is what the Jussie Smollett thing reminded me of. And for it to occur at the exact same time as, and this is sort of where we can sort of use this as a segue to go into this next piece. It's inexcusable that it happened right along with this right here.
NBC News correspondent Megan Fitzgerald. She is in Brooklyn Center. Megan, I'm going to play some of the body cam video of the moment when 20-year-old Dante Wright was pulled over and then ask you a question on the other side. But I just want to give a warning to our viewers before they watch. This video is disturbing. Here it is.
Apparently they stopped the video on us, but it's the Dante Wright case. The brother who was shot by the officer under the guise that she had a taser in her hand. So here we have, on the one hand, we have Jussie Smollett standing in his damn kitchen with a noose still hanging around his neck, receiving all of this press and all of this attention and what have you. And then we have a brother who's actually dead.
Yep.
Any reaction to the dichotomy between these two things?
Yeah, I see how you are comparing a charlatan, and yes, you know, in that respect, it's like, dude, what were you thinking? You know, this fake persecution that you're manufacturing that happened to you on that night, the noose on your neck, you took it off, you put it back on, you know. Who puts a noose back on their neck after they took it off? Like, you know, and he's created this fake hate crime, you know, calling upon images of white supremacy, not only the noose, but the MAGA hat, because you know, that's like a, you know. Anyway, so but then you actually have Black people who are, you know, actually lives are being taken by white supremacists, you know, like for real crimes is really, it's unconscionable. You know, it's like, dude, you need to stop this right now. You need to stop all this lying right now and just come clean, ask for forgiveness, and hope that one day we'll take you back.
Oh, he's done. He's done. He's done. He's done. No one is going to connect themselves financially to him. No sponsor is going to sponsor any project that he is the focus of. He's done. He ended his career. That's what he did.
And good for him, because every week so far, we're hearing about individuals that are spending 20, 30. There's a gentleman in Wisconsin that just came out, 23 years for a crime he didn't commit. We have in Georgia, a writer. She was raped at the age of 18. She mistakenly picked him out of a lineup, and then she couldn't recognize him again. So the officers, she picked someone else. He did another 30 some odd years, and she made a book. She wrote a book about this young man. Her name is Alice Sebold, I think it is.
Yeah.
And she made $1 million off that book. Oh, I feel so sorry for him. Oh, I hope he can get himself together. I didn't realize it was going to be as bad as it was. Well, how about splitting some of the money that you made off that book to help this man get off on his feet? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Let's try and run this video again. Hopefully it works for us this time.
Correspondent Megan Fitzgerald, she is in Brooklyn Center. Megan, I'm going to play some of the body cam video of the moment when 20-year-old Dante Wright was pulled over, and then ask you a question on the other side. But I just want to give a warning to our viewers before they watch. This video is disturbing. Here it is. So, Megan, just to explain this to our viewers, police are saying that officer did not mean to fire the gun. How are they explaining what happened there, that mix-up, and what are they saying about the officer involved?
So, Allison, yeah, disturbing video that you just played there. It was played at a press conference earlier today. And so the police chief of Brooklyn Center said this was an accidental shooting. He says his senior officer, the senior officer there, thought she was reaching for a taser and said, reach for her gun, fired that shot that fatally killed 20-year-old Dante Wright. I want you to take a listen to how he explained the situation.
As I watched the video and listened to the officer's commands, it is my belief that the officer had the intention to deploy their taser, but instead shot Mr. Wright with a single bullet. This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge that resulted in the tragic death of Mr. Wright.
Allison, as you can imagine, this entire situation sparking protests and outrage from people here in the community. In fact, over my shoulder here, a group of protesters have gathered outside the police department. This is where they marched last night into early yesterday morning when police were out here with riot gear using tear gas to disperse this crowd, Allison.
Megan, let me ask you, concerns about more protests and potential danger tonight, and also the mayor says he wants to see justice for Dante Wright. What else are you hearing from protesters, from community leaders this afternoon?
Okay, any reaction to what we just heard, saw and heard?
Well, that should be the story rather than Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, definitely. You know, this whole thing about the taser, it always reminds me, these moments, they always remind me of Oscar Grant, killed out on the, out in, I want to say the Bay, out in Oakland. Of course, we had the great Michael B. Jordan portraying him in Fruitvale Station. And that moment, it's one of the most powerful moments. It ranks up there with me with the glory scene, the campfire scene, the night before they're going out to get killed, when they're praying, and Michael B. Jordan turning back and looking at the officer and says, "You shot me, man. You shot me. I got a daughter to go home to, man. And you shot me." Unfortunately, that's all too common, for Black men and Black women, that they often don't go home to those loved ones, to those that they love. because people outside of our community, and sometimes even within our community, are viewing them through such a distorted lens that really paints them and portrays them as being something other than being human, having the right to live on this planet. So the juxtaposition, once again, of what we see Jussie Smollett do versus, not just Dante Wright, but the droves and droves and droves of Black folk who have been victims, random victims of crimes. Just makes me double down on the fact of how despicable his actions were, and his entire the entire decision making process that led up to this moment. And I yield.
It's all a farce. He's a farce. And this officer, oh, I meant to tase. And if you are a veteran police officer and you mistake a gun for a taser, yeah, you need to not ever wear a badge again. You just need to go to jail for just like gross negligence. Like, I don't believe that for 1 second that you, as a veteran police officer, cannot tell the difference between a taser and a gun. I don't see how that's possible. It reminds me of that whole Amber Geiger who went into uh Botham's apartment and just killed him point blank, said it, she thought it was her apartment. Y'all don't have the same decor. Come on, lady. You're lying. This officer is lying. Jussie Smollett's lying. Like, but yeah, the juxtaposition of just Smollett's farce, you know, calling upon racial symbolism with that news, like, and then you have Black people who are actually being victims of hate crimes. Yeah, no, no, this is, yeah, like he needs to stop. I just read that, oh, he's gonna appeal. No, don't appeal. This is, let this be over, dude. Let it be over. And go somewhere and, find some dignity or something.
That's it.
Yeah. What happened with the other gentleman that was a part of the whole scam?
Well, it was two other guys. They were his bodyguards, and they signed a deal with the prosecutor that if they testified against Smollett, that they would not be charged.
Mm.
And one of them had a little issue with Smollett.
Yeah.
Right.
There was a little get together.
It was a couple of little get together in some bathhouses.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
That wicked smile on Brother Allen's face.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just that. It was also illegal drugs, illegal drugs being exchanged, smoking blunts. Like, I mean, it was, those two guys, I feel like those two guys should not get let off easy. I mean, not at all. They were a part of this. They participated in this.
Yeah, and on top of that, the whole cast of Empire lost
Yeah.
their gravy train.
Yeah.
Because when it came out that he lied, he lost his following. People stopped watching the show because they were pissed off. I was one of them, So Taraji Henson, she lost her gravy train. Lucius, I can't think of his name. He lost.
Terrence
Right.
Howard, yeah.
Right, he lost his gravy train. There were so many actors that were getting paid behind this, and they ended up losing their full-time job. They had to go and find other projects. So yeah, it's just to me, it is so sad that someone would feel that they have to elevate themselves on a lie. That's just, the saddest part to me.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't care one way or another about that particular situation. You know, what happens, let the law handle it, you know, and it's a done deal. My concern is the police officer. You know, I mean, that is the issue there, you know, that because at least with the Smollett issue, everybody went home.
That's right.
You know, but with that police issue, brother didn't go home. You know, and just because a person is crying out, "I'm going to tase you! I'm going to tase you!" You know, and as Sister DC so eloquently stated, you know, maybe it was Sister
Now,
Sister Vanell, rather. You know, that how you don't know the difference between a taser and a gun.
I'm just saying.
You wear them on both two different sides of your body. You know that the gun is on your dominant side.
The weight is different.
Right, you know, and to charge her with nothing. There are so many charges they could have charged her with. If they don't want to get her with murder, some type of manslaughter or something.
Recklessness.
Absolutely, something should have happened, you know. But to just permit her to get away.
Well, here's the thing. They protect themselves, and they protect the organization, because if they start holding police accountable for their wrongdoings, then nobody's going to want to be a police officer again, you know, because most of them got a little bit of dirt under their nails, you know. So they say, well, we can't charge them because then nobody's going to want to be a police officer and there'll be no police oversight. Yeah, that's some BS. But yeah, that's the reason.
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with that. I mean, when you really consider that, I mean, just think about it. It's logical, and in a way, it's understandable that here you have a situation where you might want to split hairs and, you know, and kind of, well, you know what, we're not going to go forward with this. Now you got a couple police officers, you have a prosecutor, you have so many people in the system who are now dirty.
Yeah.
So now when it happens again, you don't even have to say it, but you know, look, I'm not going along. Okay. So that then compels the prosecutor to, well, you know what, maybe you ought to not look at it from this. Well, now whoever they convinced to not pursue it, now they're in many ways connected to a crime they weren't even, you know, the dismissal of a crime they weren't even aware of. And it's one of the reasons why it reminds me of Frank Lucas, you know, Denzel Washington's, you know, American Gangster character, how at the end, he was able to tell on everybody because everybody is interconnected. It's just that some of them have badges, but all of them are criminals. All of them are dirty. Yeah. And if you're unwilling, I remember watching this, it was a movie of some kind where they had this rookie cop and he was just with these veteran cops, and they went and had him steal some beer or something small out of a convenience store, as if it was a part of a hazing tradition. And after he had done it and they got him on tape doing it, they looked at him and said, okay, now you're a part of it. Now you're a part of it, you know? And this guy kind of got the impression that his entire career had been compromised and his career would be over if he ever ratted on anybody else, because they would talk about all the stuff that he was involved with and he'd have to talk, you know, so they, you know, you have a natural inducement to go ahead with criminality and immorality once you get in there so far. And I yield.
Yeah, I think that until Black make it known universally that nobody is going to commit these acts against us and still walk these fucking streets.
That's exactly right.
You understand? Until we do that, they're gonna always do what they do, and they're gonna always get away with it because they refuse to police their own. And hey, look, I'm cool. You know, if that is your stance that you take, but just know that it shouldn't end there. You know, I know if a police officer kills somebody in my family, he better go turn his ass in and confess and tell them to lock his ass up. It is just that simple. It is that serious. You know, because I mean, look, we're not no goddamn chicken where you just pop our damn neck and it's a done deal. You know, but until we take that stance and don't give a damn who, know we take that stand. I guarantee you, man, if a police officer kills somebody today and his ass is gone tomorrow, the police department will get the message. Hey, the judge can't save you. Your union rep can't save you. Until that is established, they're not going to stop because it is not a crime to kill us. And that's okay. It's not a crime to kill us, then it's not a crime to kill you, because ain't nobody going to go out there and put a big sign up, we did it. Just like you're not confessing.
It's a shame.
You know, what you're saying reminds me of a quote from Brother Malcolm, where he's talking about the nonviolent tendencies of, you know, mainstream civil rights activists. And Malcolm says quite simply, you can't tell me as violent as you were over in Vietnam, that you come back here and you so gentle and what have you. It reminds me of, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but the city of Chicago has contingency plans, the police department, of how they will shut that city down if that looting and killing that seems to be going on, that organized looting in particular, they know how they're going to shut it down. And my thing is, y'all are in there breaking into stores to steal a damn Gucci belt while your people are getting killed. You know, it's a lack of focus, a lack of understanding of priorities. You know, as an educator, I always trace back to the absence of education and understanding, because there's no way that you can go all out for a damn belt, some designer bullshit, but you can't go all out for people within your own family.
But James,
the main by the police. Go ahead.
Add this on. You know, you didn't take it far enough, because they'll go down to, you know, the Green Mile in Chicago, where all of the, you know, Gucci stores and you know, high price stores are. They'll loot, and then 6 months later, they taking their whole paycheck, unemployment check, a family aid check, and going back and giving them people the same money, the same money that the insurance company just paid off to, you know, make the store whole again. And then the same looters are going down there, oh, Gucci having a sale. You know, I got, you know, $50 in my bank account. Let me take it down here and give it to them. It's incredible what our people do. And they don't even, like you said, it's a pathology. They don't understand what they're doing. It's an illness. You know, they don't care that we're being killed. They don't care that we're being cheated. They don't care that we're being discriminated against. But let somebody say, hey, we're going to hit them stores tonight. They right there trying to get that Gucci belt, like you said.
Yes,
it's incredible.
And the thing is this, is that, all right, now we have people, I mean, that we are killing us.
Yeah.
You know, so look, all I'm saying, look, if you are a killer and you got to kill somebody that deserves it.
Exactly.
You know, don't be killing a little innocent black kid on the street. Go and kill these officers that is wreaking havoc in your doggone society.
Exactly.
Nobody shouldn't have to tell you to go do it. You're a killer anyhow. You got gang members anyway.
Yeah.
Go out there and handle that business. Show us how bad you really are. I used to tell the drug dealers, hey, look, if you grow up in the white neighborhood and set up on that corner and sell drugs, I don't have a fucking word to say to you in our community. But they won't go up there and do that. They're just killing us, you know, and that is the thing that you know, that our so-called gang members, the Bloods and the Crips and whoever else, whatever other group is out there, hey, look, man, put your misdeeds to good work. And let these police officers know that the killing of us is going to stop. And then you turn that same damn gun on yourselves if you're killing people in our community. It is just that simple.
You know, there seems, and this is sort of definitely just the topic flowing forward. You know, I have so many male students, so many African-American male students who are just enamored with the Black Mafia family, you know, with Big Meech, with this gangster, that gangster, you know, this and that. And I'm just, you know, there's a depravity that comes from that, where you try to get them to understand, brother, do you understand how limited and powerless that actually is? But it's the lack of a developed understanding of manhood and masculinity that gets them involved in that. And then there's a cascading, a spiraling down, you know. And one of the lessons that I consistently try and teach to my male students, and it comes from something my father would say to me. And he was talking about involvement with criminal activity with the police and what have you. He says, this was his way of saying it. He would say, don't get so far out there that I can't get you back. And I try and tell my male students, at this moment, with this economy, with the brand of Blackness in general, Black men in particular being so low, get one strike. And I don't care if that strike is a misdemeanor. You'll, as Sister DC was talking about with Jussie Smollett, he's done.
Finished.
Yeah.
You know, you get one, anything, you're gonna be done. Because there really is, and this is probably one of the harshest lessons that I've learned, is that there is even a little bit of trouble that you get yourself in. There is not one Black person who is connected and willing to get you out of it. And that's the difference between they have an engagement with the criminal justice system. And as Julianne Malveaux once said about skinheads, she said, a skinhead ain't nothing but a white boy that could grow some hair and go get a job on Wall Street tomorrow.
Yep.
Whereas us, we don't have an engagement. We have what Jada Pinkett Smith referred to as an entanglement, where you can't extricate yourself from that, because that's going to show up, you know. And I had to explain this to one of my very best students, one of my very closest students, that, you know, he had a charge from when he was a minor, and they were supposed to expunge his record. And I sat him down and I said, look, let's look at it. And I'd be doggone if it didn't show up. Yeah. And I'm like, now they're not going to tell you they saw it, but that's why you wasn't hired in that school.
38 years, James, 38 years. All right. And I can't present myself to anybody who's going to roll my fingerprints, because that 38 years is going to come back. That's all I'm saying.
I can't believe that they would hold a person back? Like, what is the point of that? Well, I don't
Because
understand. You know,
they can.
to
That's
me,
the point.
when I was on the road in sales, and the most important thing to me was my driver's license. I didn't want to get no points on it. I didn't want to get anything because, you know, they always check your record, your driver's license, you know, your driving record to see, you know, if they can still insure you, and you got to be bonded and everything else. Those were the things and it was very difficult. I mean, I didn't get stuck. Well, I got stuck, but I never had anything in the car or anything like that. But these things are so important to us. I mean, you can't even leave the house without your papers with you. You know what I mean? You can't go, you know, and I don't understand why they hold us. Someone does the time for whatever it is, let it go. Wipe the slate clean. Let that person start again and you know, be productive.
But I don't think that exiting the womb that we start with a clean slate.
Nope.
I believe that when they see us, that all the racial imagery and all the racial misunderstanding, because let's be very clear that by far the majority of the conflict and problems that, I'm not talking about killers and gangsters, I'm not talking about gangster disciples, but the average median Negro has, that's problems and troubles that was brought to them. And oftentimes they're fighting for their survival in regards to that. Let's be very clear about this as well. White society has historically put Black folk in a damned if you do, damned if you don't category. You're damned if you do try to start your own business or your own section of the city. You're considered to be a racial separatist. But you're also considered to be, you're damned if you don't, because you're going to be looked at as a leech, someone who is parasitic upon the white economy. And white folk have historically said, you know, quite simply, why can't you start your own store? Why can't you? Well, when you try to do that, you got some negative thing. And our people have not been race first conscious, you know, and it's one of the damnedest things that here, you know what the tie is that binds y'all together.
Yeah.
And you think that denying and ignoring that tie that binds y'all together is going to get you over? No.
So
they're gonna do you in once you're separate from the others. You just don't see it yet.
James, I think that one of the issues with that is that the tie that binds us together historically in this country has not been culture. It's been struggle.
Yeah.
And for
You hold on one second.
African-American-
Hold on 1 second, Sister Vernell.